Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's regularly scheduled Committee of the Whole meeting. This meeting is called to order, and we let the record show that all the aldermen, save for Alderman Burghardt, who is walking in. We have a full house tonight, folks. On our agenda, actually call to order, we've done that, so everyone's present. We would like to begin the meeting tonight with a moment of silence to recognize and honor a gentleman, Mr. Don Forney. Mr. Forney passed away Friday afternoon. As all of you probably know, Mr. Forney spent the vast majority of his career serving the Park District of Geneva. He was also a longtime Lions Club member. A celebration of his life will take place tomorrow at Malone's Funeral Home from 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock. The city flags have been lowered to honor Mr. Forney and to convey to his family our thoughts and warm wishes, of course, during this difficult time. So if we could also just begin the meeting with a moment of silence to reflect on Don's life and contributions, I'd be most grateful. Thank you very much. Item 2A is to proclaim September 2015 as Hunger Action Month in the city of Geneva. A presentation of the proclamation to our friends at the Northern Illinois Food Bank. I'll entertain a motion to so proclaim.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Sino. We have a guest tonight from the food bank. Welcome, come on up. How are you, sir?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. If you'd be so kind as to state your name and your position at the food bank.
Sure, so my name's Brandon Pettigrew. I am the communication specialist at the Northern Illinois Food Bank. I handle all of the awareness, advocacy, and outreach for food bank related issues, including Hunger Action Month.
Awesome. Now, Mr. Pettigrew, proclamations are lovely, of course. They're flowery language and all that good stuff, but give us some anecdotes as to how meaningful and how impactful the food bank is in the communities that you serve.
So the food bank this past fiscal year, our fiscal year runs from July to June, helped serve 57 million meals in our 13 counties. We put out about 8.5 million meals here in King County alone through our roughly 90 food pantries, soup kitchens, and feeding programs. So we're pretty impactful. There are roughly about 10 million meals that are skipped in King County. So we're looking at about 85% of the meals that are being skipped being received by those hungry neighbors through food pantries that we help support.
That's amazing. It's sad in a respect, but thankfully, of course, the food bank and all those who donate are understanding of the need.
Yes, and the city of Geneva has been very supportive throughout, even before we were here in 2011, and then when we built our new facility that September.
So is there an average consumer of the food bank?
I would say that
Tough to,
our average consumer of the food bank falls somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000 a year. They're working, but they're working either a part-time job that pays decent or a full-time job that pays minimum wage or just a little above. They usually have roughly about 2 kids. They are married, so it is a full household. And they usually are struggling to pay some kind of bill. So the food pantry is usually a last resort for a lot of the people who we help. We could actually help bring their lives back to self-sustainability a lot easier if they would come to us sooner instead of spending all of their savings and then having nothing for us to help build their lives back up.
and what is the typical evolution of someone coming to the food bank? To your point, if they arrived or sought the assistance sooner, perhaps it wouldn't be such a struggle, but is there still, and I think I know the answer to this, but is there still a slight stigma involved that you're trying to erase, or?
Yeah, I think the stigma that we have trouble with here in the Chicagoland area is that a lot of people, even in the suburbs, envision people who use our services as if we were to visit Chicago and the people on the corners that are asking for money. That's not a very typical image of who uses our services. They tend to be in their 30s. They've most likely lost their second job of their career, so they've had a job right out of college, and now they've lost kind of that other job. They tend to have children. About 1/3 of the people who come through our food pantries on a yearly basis are under the age of 18. And so they look like us. I mean, I think I would encourage anyone in the city of Geneva to feel free to call us up, and we'd be happy to take you over to, there's 2 food pantries here in Geneva. One's at First Baptist, and the other is at St. Peter's. And so both of those food pantries will tell you the same thing. They're people that look just like us that have fallen on hard times.
And what role does medical emergency play in customers seeking the support of the food bank? Life-changing event of that nature.
It plays a decent role. So we do take advantage of the emergency food program that the federal government helps kind of employ upon us. A lot of our food pantries take advantage of that. We encourage all of our food pantries to serve anyone who were to come to them, even if it would be outside of their service area, to serve that person at least once. And that's a capability that we're able to do through that program. So.
That's great. Any comments or questions from Mr. Pettigrew? I think we're all very familiar with the extraordinary work that you do. What's your background, sir?
My background actually started in Nebraska, so I'm a graduate of the University of Nebraska. I worked in environmental studies first, so I worked for a very large zoo back in Omaha working on environmental issues. Actually moved here on my wife's job. She is in education. She works down at Moraine Valley and worked for an organization called the Center for Neighborhood Technology out of the city, large sustainability. So I have a lot of work in sustainability, have been to several city meetings and listened to talks about how to improve roadways and gardens and things along those lines. And then I started the food bank about 15 months ago. Never looked back.
That's wonderful. A technical question that I've heard posed before. Is the food shortage crisis a matter of distribution more than it is a matter of supply?
Yeah, so to put things in perspective, about 70 billion pounds of food goes to waste in the United States every year. We actually recover from our retailers about 30 million pounds a year of that food within our 13 counties. Really, at this point, it's more about needing to build capacity within our food pantries to be able to handle the need, rather than needing to have a bunch of new food pantries pop up. We're doing pretty good, but unfortunately, much like how cities change and everything has to progress, we still have a lot of food pantries of the 60s and 70s that exist within small church closets, and not necessarily a lot of pantries that are able to sustain a lot of capacity.
Anyone from the dais, or the audience for that matter? I do have a lovely proclamation for you. We've heard a motion and a second. All in favor of so proclaiming September, as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? May I present this to you, Mr. Pettigrew?
Absolutely.
So where's home for you?
Naperville.
Never heard of it.
I hear you work there, or worked.
No comment. They have an extraordinary food bank.
Yes.
They have a great food bank. That's for you. Thanks for
you.
being with us.
Absolutely.
How's your CEO treating you? She does good
Never
work, doesn't
better.
she? Yeah, good, good.
Have fun.
Thank you very much.
Are you going on vacation? Yes.
Who told
No.
you all this stuff?
Well, we actually have business meets coming on Thursday.
Oh, you do? I know you do. Yeah, the 27th. I know. Isn't that terrible? You're going to have the second guy, possibly, Kevin.
We like that Kevin too.
Yeah,
so.
he's got it. Thank you, Mr. Pettigrew.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Item 3, closed session on the purchase and acquisition of real property for the use of the public body. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to closed session.
So moved.
Motion by Marks, seconded by Singer. A roll call vote is necessary. Madam Recording Secretary, please take the roll.
Mike Bruno,
Aye.
Tara Burkhart,
Aye.
Donald Cummings.
Aye.
Dean Kilburg. Aye. Craig Maladra.
Aye.
Richard Marks.
Aye.
Jim Radecki.
Aye.
Tom Simonian.
Aye.
Mary Sino. Ron Singer.
Ladies and gentlemen, this shall not be long, and there will be no action following this closed session. So if you could indulge us for just a few minutes, make yourselves comfortable. The cameras will be turned off, as will the microphones. We'll see you in a bit. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Motion to return to open session is in order. Motion by Mark, seconded by Sino.
Roll call.
Roll call vote, please, Madam Recording Secretary.
Mike Bruno.
Aye.
Tara Burkhart.
Aye.
Donald Cummings. Dean Kilburg.
Aye.
Craig Maladra.
Aye.
Richard Marks.
Aye.
Jim Radecki.
Aye.
Tom Simonian.
Aye.
Mary Sino. Ron Singer.
We are back in open session. Thank you all. And thank you again for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. Item 4 is to, no, it's
Yeah,
not.
4 is minutes.
Yes.
Sorry, yeah, just to approve the minutes. Okay, we're good.
We need to approve the minutes.
Yeah. Item 4, to approve the committee of the whole minutes from August 10th, 2015. Motion by Kilburg,
Second.
seconded by Bruno. Any comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Items of business. Item 5A, recommend approval of special event application for Fox Valley Folk Festival, September 6 and 7, 2015. Motion by Maladra,
Second.
second by Bruno. It's a great event. Great event. Anyone here from the Folk Festival tonight? Yeah, come on up, man. A familiar face to us all.
The only one I've got.
Violated FCC rules, so thank you. How many years is this now in Geneva?
This is in Geneva, this is our 37th year. First year was Aurora, when they built Water Street Mall, and
Sure.
second year was at Cantini, and then we discovered Island Park, and we said,
Fantastic.
we know where we want to be.
Absolutely. We love having you here, too.
Well, we really appreciate the hospitality. It's folks that come in, we bring in people from, usually 15 or more states, and
Incredible, isn't it?
and people love it. It's, we've actually had some people move to the area because they liked it from out of the area.
Wow. Any questions or comments for this fine gentleman? I'm sorry, just for the benefit of everyone watching and here, your name, sir?
My name is Jewel Alvin, and the festival is pretty much, well, not pretty much, it's totally run by volunteers, including myself. We have a crew of about 100 and, we have a core of 300 people, but yearly we use about 120 to 150 people. And convert the island from a beautiful 13-acre park to a beautiful 13-acre music and storytelling venue.
Right.
So we run about 100 hours of performances in 2 days, and a lot of the business people now have paired up with us, and with the help of the city, we're doing stuff downtown on the Saturday of Labor Day weekend, and we do a live radio broadcast from the Unitarian Church over there and streamed on the internet, so everybody
Is
can
that
hear.
WFMT as well, or no?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, it's broadcast on FMT, and
Great.
we've actually done showcases with WFMT for probably 25 years ahead of the festival, 20 years. And then, actually, we moved it out to the Unitarian Church 5 years ago, and that's been beautiful. It's sold out
Fantastic.
every year. So, but sure love to have
Any questions or comments for Jewel?
any and all of you join us.
Well, you know, Mr. Marks actually plays the,
Oh, no, I have no musical instrument here.
Well, we
Tried it, failed at it, and not going down that
all
path
state
again.
spoons back in
We
the
have a
60s.
well, we do have a percussion session, and we have
I
a
know.
ukulele session that Lil Rev gets you started. He trains up about 50 people a year that, when he comes in. He's got quite a talent. He can get them going.
Mr. Maladra, are you playing at the Folk Festival this year?
No, but I met this guy at Creamer Guitars.
Yeah.
They fixed the neck of my guitar, but they couldn't find any talent to sell me.
We do have a motion and a second. All in favor of the request, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, sir. Good to see you again.
Thank you. It's good to see you.
Thanks, good luck.
Item 5B is to recommend draft resolution authorizing execution of a labor contract with Utility Dynamics for underground electric cable replacement on Executive Place and within the PET subdivision, PET subdivision, in the amount of $654,430.70.
So moved.
Marks makes the motion,
Second.
seconded by Cummings. Any questions or comments?
A quick question.
Yes, sir.
Al? Just one obvious question. Boy, there's quite a discrepancy in the bid amounts. You pretty comfortable with this?
Yeah, I'm very
I
comfortable.
mean, there's several $100,000 difference between the bids.
It's not uncommon, and I think whenever the industry is as saturated as they are right now with work out there, they're not willing to take it, a lot of them, if they don't get a pretty significant margin on it. This is within our estimate, and I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, thank you.
We already went out and rejected it once because we only got one bid,
Right.
and it was over our amount. So this is our second attempt.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else questions for Mr. Wright, except for, what's the tie? Mr. Singer?
How you doing, Hal?
I'm doing good.
Have these people contracted, you've contracted them previously for any city work?
Yes, they've done underground cable replacement for us before. Worked for us for many decades, off and on.
I thought so. I feel comfortable with that. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. Item 5C is to recommend draft resolution declaring a 1995 traffic arrow board as surplus property.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Cummings, seconded by Marks. Any questions or comments as to why we're declaring this 20-year-old traffic? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Item 5D is to recommend approval of the Festival of the Vines special event liquor licenses for Fiora's Restaurant, Chianti's Restaurant, The Little Traveler, and Geneva Wine Cellars for September 11th through the 13th, 2015, as presented in your packet.
Second.
Sino makes the motion and Marks makes the second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Item 5E is to recommend draft ordinance amending Title 11 zoning, Sections 11-2-2, definitions, and Section 11-3-8, temporary uses and events, all related to garage sales in residential zoning districts. Singer makes the motion,
Second.
seconded by Radecki. All of you should have received, I think late last week or over the weekend, the minutes from the Plan Commission meeting that Paul Evans sent along. This matter was considered at the Plan Commission and voted upon unanimously to so make those text amendments. So it's before us tonight for consideration. Mr. Singer.
Thank you. David, I guess. Yes, sir. It's a definition of terms here. Garage sales, I see there, you did include estate sales. Was that covered in any of the documentation?
Yes, the definition reads that it would be including but not limited to all sales entitled garage sales, lawn sales, yard sales,
Yeah.
backyard sales, estate sales, attic sales, patio sales, porch sales, and other sales.
Yeah, okay, yeah, very good,
Trying to
thank
be
you.
all-inclusive.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Simonian?
Thank you, Mayor. David, in the executive summary, it says to a maximum of 3 days. Did we discuss 3 consecutive days?
Right, 3 consecutive days, no more than 3 times a year.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the dais? Oh, Alderman Marks.
What is the penalty if they go over that? I didn't see it in the ordinance.
It would be just the general penalty we have in the zoning
Okay,
ordinance,
so
which
it's
is
just the
subject to a
zoning.
fine of up to $75 a day.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other council members? Anyone in the audience? The motion's on the floor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, David. Item F is the consideration of future efforts regarding downtown business district. We have our Economic Development Director, Kathleen Tomashenko, with us this evening, who has a brief PowerPoint presentation. And prior to that presentation, is going to provide us some, how do I say this, a verbal, up-to-speed presentation, correct? Just kind of bring us all to the point we are today.
Right, that's exactly what the PowerPoint hopes to achieve. So if I may, I will go right into it. We have about maybe 9 slides, I think, so trying to be concise. So just to talk about the purpose of a business district, it is entitled under the state statute, the Business District Development and Redevelopment Act, and the purpose is to strengthen the tax base of the downtown business district, to assure opportunities for district development or redevelopment, and to attract sound and stable commercial growth in the district. Municipal authority within a business district is also in the statute, and there are certain things that you're enabled to do in a business district: buy, manage, lease, and sell property, including eminent domain, apply for and accept donations, grants, and loans, borrow money, issue bonds, enter into contracts, demolish buildings or other improvements, construct or reconstruct public buildings or site improvements, renovate or rehab existing buildings, fix fees and charge rents, expend business district sales tax and/or hotel tax for planning, executing, and implementing district development or redevelopment plans, and imposing an incremental sales tax on purchases in the district, or imposing an incremental hotel tax. A business district is funded, a district remains in place for 23 years, and it allows for increased sale or hotel taxes in 0.25% increments up to 1%. Sales tax are collected by the Illinois Department of Revenue. Hotel taxes must be collected directly by the municipality. Revenues are placed into a special fund to be used only within that district. And on an annual basis, the City Council would review a proposed budget for the district and prepare and review those expenses through the budget process. A business district plan is required to move forward with a business district. You have to name the business district, designate the area by way of a map, generally describe proposed projects within the district, describe the location of the proposed projects within the district, estimate the project costs, and identify anticipated sources of funds to pay those costs. Some of the eligible costs in a business district include professional fees, property assembly, site preparation and public infrastructure, building rehab, building construction, including reimbursement, payment to private developers, financing, and relocation. So the downtown business district discussion began in 2011. The business district expired, the existing downtown business district expired in 2013. The council began to look at this issue again in 2011 and referred the matter to the Economic Development Commission. We have a pretty detailed timeline within your packet, but some of the highlights include that a consultant was hired and phase 1 work was completed. The Chamber of Commerce Board expressed opposition to the creation of the business district if it would impose any tax increases unless those were imposed equally throughout the city. The EDC spent many months reviewing the topic and just recently recommended continuation of discussion, and they defined a vision statement for the district, but they deferred discussion about the potential tax to a later date. The proposed boundaries of the TIF district are shown on this map. It is not very clear. It's a reproduction of a draft, but generally it goes along State Street from 9th to Longview, and then it goes down 3rd Street from just north of Hamilton to just past the train tracks. It also encompasses area along the riverbank, as shown in the center area. Wanted to point out that it is a larger district than the existing number 1 SSA, the downtown SSA. So the area of the SSA covers a lot less territory. The SSA relies on property tax revenues, which are based on valuation of the property rather than sales tax. The SSA provides funding at present for services including providing and maintaining public parking lots. And the city has subsidized the SSA by about 1/3 each year from the general fund. The staff is recommending that the business district move forward as it is a potential funding source for projects identified in the Downtown Station Area Master Plan, the Comprehensive Plan, and Strategic Planning. We're recommending continued work only if there would be consideration of a business district tax, as there is no identified purpose to the district without a funding source. We wanted to state that the downtown business district has needs that are different from the needs from the Randall Road Business District. The Randall Road businesses typically pay common area maintenance fees that provide customers and employees service and amenities such as parking, snow plowing, wayfinding signage, streetscape furniture, all those common area considerations. We also thought it was important to note that an independent market analysis that was done a few years ago by an outside company for the city determined that only about 22% of the downtown shoppers are Geneva residents. Potential projects for the business district would include additional off-street surface and structure parking, updating wayfare signage, enhanced open space and civic gathering spaces, improved streetscape and pedestrian scale lighting, public restrooms, bikeway implementation, plan improvements, and improved connectivity across the Fox River for pedestrian and bicyclists. The other noteworthy information we thought would be helpful to you in your discussion tonight would be looking at comparable sales tax rates presently within the locale close to Geneva where other people would shop regularly. So as you can see, we're not the lowest, but we're amongst one of the lowest. Should the City Council determine that you would like to move forward with continuing the discussion of the business district, it would be necessary for us to bring forward a budget amendment to create funding for the continuation of the consulting work that would be needed. It's not included in the budget at present. We would need to engage consulting services to go back and update some of the data that was ascertained during the Phase 1 findings as it's dated, and also to complete Phase 2 because that was not completed the first time. Phase 2 work would include defining the projects, creating a budget, determining the tax rate, and finalizing the draft business district plan. We would also need to bring forward a resolution setting the date and time of public hearing, complete the public notices and hold the public hearing, revise the business district plan as a result of public participation that we would expect, approve ordinances designating the business district, and then submit documentation to the Department of Revenue. This can only happen twice a year, April 1st with collection beginning in July, and October 1st with collections beginning in January. So I hope that that provides you with enough summary to maybe pick up the discussion again and provide us with direction as to whether or not you want us to spend time and bring forward these next steps as you see fit.
Thank you, Kathleen. Comments from the dais, Alderman Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kathy, you had a mention of the sales taxes from the other outlying cities? Mm-hmm. Yes. Is that inclusive of a business tax?
Some of them have it. This is their total number. Yes, some of them have business tax, some don't. I didn't break it down, but some were home rule. They had the extra home rule tax. It varied amongst the listed people, communities, rather.
So some of them, some of the tax rates there are inclusive of a business tax as well.
I'd have to go back and double-check that. What I did was I just looked up the total. I wasn't getting into exactly what was contributing to. I was looking at the bottom line in order for us to understand whether any additional percentage would have an impact from a competitive standpoint when we look at communities surrounding us. So to answer that question, I'd have to go back and research. I didn't look that deeply at the rates and what
Okay.
contributed to the rates.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Alderman Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kathleen, the list of projects that you had before, that's not a comprehensive list.
No, by all means, and that's something that was not completed as part of the work with the community and stakeholders and the consultant. This list of projects comes from the downtown plan, potential projects in there, discussions that have been had in the past with groups and stakeholders to understand what the needs are. Also, a community survey that was done as part of the business district formation. So these are just some of the highlights of what potential projects could be in the district.
And the larger umbrella, I mean, you can, what I didn't see reflected in there, these monies could be spent on infrastructure, sprinkling buildings, is that right?
You could elect to do that. You have eligible costs, and the second to the last bullet there had building construction, including reimbursement payments to private developers. So should you decide that you wanted a program like that, the business district could be the vehicle to provide funding for that. Right now, we don't have a source for those kind of assistance programs in the downtown area.
And just to be clear, and it always seems to come up, or I've heard it come up, you know, the chicken and the egg thing. What we're doing here is discussing moving ahead with further research. If we don't come up with projects that we could see spending these monies on, we just don't create the district. Is that correct?
Sure, you would not have to complete the district. Why we wanted to bring this forward now is because we have, we've talked a lot about it, and in order to move forward, we should probably move to the next step, which would be picking up where we left off with the plan, and that would entail working with the consultant and expending money. So I guess what we're trying to ask is, should we move forward? Do we want to spend money in this area or not?
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Radecki.
I guess the question is, do we have the appetite for the tax right now in the downtown business? Because that, as you said, it's senseless to do this if we're not going to do that. That's really the question.
Right, you could derive some benefits, but there's a cost to forming the district, and you would not be able to really accomplish the things that you're hoping to accomplish without a funding mechanism for the district.
Now, by statute, I guess, you can't go ahead, I know the chamber would like their concern was that this should be shared by all businesses, not just the downtown district. But if we do that, if this was to be expanded to Randall Road, then they would also be eligible for the benefit of that and the funds to be spent. You have to be a part of this district to receive the benefit of the district. So if you expand it, they have to receive the benefit also. And as you said, they already have mechanisms out on Randall Road to
Right.
meet the needs that we're trying to fulfill in our business district.
Right,
That's
you would have to make sure that those properties qualified under the statute and determine whether you would have to create two separate districts or one, very large district.
Now, if we were home rule, we would be, the other communities that are at 8% and that are adjoining us, because they have the benefit of home rule, I'm assuming they have the ability to apply it in a much broader sense than we would be able to. We would be more limited.
I believe so, with respect to raising the sales tax. Is that what you're asking?
Home rule, yeah,
Without a business
right, without a business district, home rule can do that. My other question, and my last question is, I think in the presentation it said that we would be limited to a 1/4% increase with a maximum of 1 total.
Yes, you can do 1/4% increments, so you can go
Right.
anywhere between the 1/4% up to a maximum of 1.
And how often? I mean, can you impose is it a 1% over the life of the 23 years? Or, I mean, could you, for sake of illustration, could we say a 1/4% this week and a 1/4% next week? What are the limitations, and is it a percent over the full 23 years?
It could not be a maximum of more than 1%, as the statute is today. So if you put in a 1/4% and then later you raise it to a 0.5%, and then later you raise it to 1%, you could not move again to raise it any higher. And raising the tax would be done by ordinance, and it would be done as part of the annual budgeting, if you wanted to take a look at that tax and determine what it would be. You can only file them twice a year at the Department of Revenue, so you'd have to work within those parameters.
Thank you.
Alderman Sino.
The last meeting, I must have been this, like, right around March of 2014, I felt there was a lot of, not a lot of opposition from the downtown business people. I think it might have been before you were here, and you
Right,
might not have been there, but
In
I didn't
April?
feel like this is what the downtown businesses wanted, so that's why I have a little,
There definitely is opposition from the Chamber Board members who have vocalized that. There was also in April 2014, there was a public meeting held at the Economic Development Commission. The purpose of that meeting was to do a workshop and try to brainstorm projects. The consultant was there with a program to try to elicit that input. The meeting, as far as I read and was told by members of the staff, the meeting was very abbreviated. There was opposition to the idea, and the tone of the meeting was not positive, and the meeting was stopped rather early, and they did not have the ability to do the program that was planned for that night. So that workshop was not completed. You know, if the council did want to move forward with the district, that would be an option. You know, try to work and consensus build, and to bring the consultant in to try to work on that mending of the ways and trying to build consensus and support for the business district could be definitely part of the program that we could work on.
so if we vote to go along with this tonight, are we approving the tax increase, or?
No, you wouldn't be. What you would be doing is saying, yes, we want to spend money to continue studying. You want the staff to spend time. You want a consultant to be brought back to finish what was started. But what I'm saying is, I don't think we should do that unless we're looking to possibly look at a tax.
Thank you.
Mary, do you want to?
I would just reiterate that if there is not going to be a tax implemented for improvements in this district, there's no need spending money on furthering the study. Because it's taken so long to make a decision, that's why we have to go back and update the data. And we never got to phase 2. So again, that's more money to update the data and to finish phase 2, so there's no need investing that if the council doesn't have the appetite. What staff is saying, we believe that there are needs in the downtown district that are different from the other parts of town, because it's older, because it wasn't built in the 90s like Randall Road was built. And that's why we're saying the only way to address those needs is through a funding mechanism like a business district, like a TIF. We're considering, that as well. So we're looking at those potential funding mechanisms that are available to non-home rule communities, which home rule sales tax is not, because we're not going to just be where we are today as far as funding. We're going to have less. Our LGDF is going, some of that's going away, and property taxes are likely to be frozen. So that means that we are not going to have as much money next year as we have today. So if we don't come up with different funding mechanisms to invest in the downtown district, then we're not going to be able to do that. And this is one way. So yes, we are saying if you don't have the appetite for a tax, please say so now, and we won't invest more time or money into it, because this wasn't budgeted this year, as Kathleen indicated. So, thank you. I just wanted to clarify.
Alderman Simonian, Alderman Maladra, Cummings.
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple questions, Kathleen. Do we have any idea how much this study is going to cost to complete?
Yes, I did include a proposal that we received a few months ago when the EDC asked the same question. For basic services, just to update Phase 1 and complete Phase 2, the estimation is $13,500. And then we had some optional tasks depending upon how much community outreach would be done and public participation. If we wanted to go back and have that workshop, for instance, we had some a la carte services defined between, it could be up to another just under 10,000, depending on what you picked from those a la carte options. But the 13.5 would be needed to meet the statutory requirements to form the business district.
And if we did do something like this, how long of a process would it be, would you say, to go from?
We're definitely looking at probably 90 days at least. We'd have to see what the consultant's availability is with respect to coming forward to the public hearings. We would want them there at the public hearing, so we'd have to engage, and then we'd also have to work to do our budget amendments, so I think it could take several months.
Okay. And then, is there if the current study, is there a drop dead date on the current study? I mean, is that information at some point in time become useless and we have to start from square one?
It does, actually, because you have 5 years. You have to go back 5 years to look at the EAV and what's going on with the properties with respect to investment and deterioration, et cetera. So you're doing a property-by-property assessment, and that's a 5-year assessment, and now we've already got it aged. So that's what the going back, and the longer this material ages, it becomes more useless, and we would have to start over. It becomes a point where, we would have to begin again.
So are you saying that if we do this study, it has a 5-year life cycle?
No, it doesn't even have a 5-year life cycle, because to meet the statutory regulations, you have to go back 5 years. So now we started this, and our data, we have to go back and update a full year. You wait another year, now you have to update 2 years, now you have to update 3 years. So you always have to have the most recent 5 years.
Okay.
So comes to a point where the data is just expiring.
Are the businesses on Randall Road paying the same tax rate as
Yes,
the downtown
that's our community.
business district?
Yes. At present, everybody's at the same.
Do we have to create a business district to increase taxes on, for example, Randall Road? Or can we just,
As a
community?
non-home rule community, we can't impose a sales tax other than through, for example, a TIF or a business district.
Okay.
Or a referendum.
Or a referendum, right, but not by ordinance.
And lastly, I think, as Alderman Bruno had mentioned earlier, I think this is one of those chicken and egg kind of scenarios. And I think that, if I'm a business owner, I'm looking more to find out what the money's going to be spent on and then support the tax versus, I think, the way we've gone about it, which is try and create the tax and then figure out how we're gonna use it. And I think, for me anyhow, personally, if I was a business owner in the city, I would say, hey, come to me with a plan, a cost, and the benefits, and then I will then work with you to support it. So for me personally, I think that until we get to that point, I think we're wasting money and staff time to do this project. But that's just my 2 cents. I don't have a problem with the increase in taxes. I just have a problem with where it's going to be earmarked, and I think that's where some of the problem lies. And putting it in general terms, it just doesn't, to me, if I was a business owner, I don't think it would sit that well. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Well, if I could just explain that, the general terms are incorporated into a plan that's attached to the ordinance. And that's to give you flexibility, because you're budgeting year by year. So on an annual basis, you're choosing those particular projects with particular price tags. So whatever the increment is, 25 cents, 50 cents, 75 cents, or a dollar, or 10, I'm sorry, $1. So you're looking at that increment, and you're saying this is what we're projecting for years such and such through the next 23 years. And then on an annual basis, you're looking at the general plan, that list that Kathleen gave you, and through the budget process, you're saying, all right, it looks like we're going to project X number of dollars through these next 2 years. This is what we can afford to do, and here are the specific projects. So your general plan is attached to your ordinance, but your very specific plan with dollar amounts out of that general plan are budgeted each year. So first of all, you're trying to give yourself some flexibility as to the type of projects, and then you're looking out of that general list into specific projects.
But I mean, I understand that, but if I'm on the other side, that's the business owner, I mean, I'd rather sit back and have the city come to me and say, here's our 10-year plan of the projects we want to do on our estimated costs, and will you support that in increasing the tax? And then we have the plan in place where we're going to spend the money, and then go get support and get the money, versus the other way around, where we have the money and then we say, okay, now we've got X amount of dollars, we can spend it on this particular plan.
But those projects are listed. They're in the comprehensive plan, the downtown plan, and the strategic plan. Public restrooms, building them, maintaining them. I mean, those are dollar figures that you would look at, for example, I'm just using that as an example, for next year's budget. So all of those specific projects that you're talking about, we do have a list of those.
But they're in a plan. I think it has to be, I think it just has to be, in my opinion, again, my opinion, it's got to be more formalized as to exactly what it is that to present to the business owners. And I think I think that's the sticking point, in my opinion, is that it's in the plan, but take it from the plan to a more detailed, that this is more than just a plan. This is our objectives, these are our goals, this is our 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, this is how much we plan on spending, this is what we plan on doing, this is when we plan on doing it, and this is what it's going to cost, and we need your support to get that done. I mean, I'm just saying, I just think I think it's all the pieces there. I just think it's how we bundle it, communicate it, and get support for it. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you, Mayor.
If I may.
Please do.
I think that the Economic Development Commission had the same sentiment, and they were left in the same place. And one of the things that we talked about was that's exactly what Phase 2 of the work that was supposed to have been done with a consultant would have done. The abbreviated public meeting that I spoke about earlier was supposed to be that stakeholder brainstorming, let's get all the projects on the wall, almost like what we do at strategic planning, and start to create that budget. And then there was going to be, as part of that, projections of what the district should be able to produce and how you're putting that budget together. You know, what happened was all the conversation just kind of came to a screeching halt because of the very real concern with the tax increase. So it is the chicken and an egg.
Oh, I agree.
To the ninth degree. But where we're at right now is if we want to move forward with that, that's something that we do need professional consulting help with, and we need to spend money to do that. So that's really exactly, you're right, that's where we need to be. We need to be getting that information detailed, and how do we get there would be to move forward.
Can I just follow up on that?
No.
Okay.
Alderman Maladra, Cummings, Burghardt, then Marks. Okay?
And Alderman Singer
Oh,
comes
Singer,
forward.
that's the second time, so we have to revert to those who have
right.
not yet spoken.
All right, so
Sorry, Rich.
No, that's okay. She was on a question I was
Tom
going to
took
ask.
part of what I was going to say.
Sorry.
No, don't, it's going to be the same thing, so it doesn't matter who says it. But the point that I want to get at is Jim's thing, whether or not this council has the appetite for the sales tax increase. And the question I would pose to everybody here is, we have a number of improvements that are in all these plans, the comprehensive plan, the downtown master plan, et cetera, et cetera. If we don't have the appetite for a tax increase of some sort, how do we intend to do all of that stuff? Did we really go through all these exercises just to create some pretty fancy notebooks with a lot of fancy pictures in it and a bunch of words that sit on a shelf? If we intend to accomplish any of that stuff, this has got to be a consideration as far as a tool for making that stuff happen is concerned. The second thing about the business owners who came in and were adamant that they did not want to hear anything other than no. You know, again, they can help us pick our priorities, or we can pick those priorities without them, or we can choose, you know, not to move. That's an option as well. But we do. We spend a lot of time, a lot of effort in coming up with not just a vision for what the downtown needs to be, but that vision includes some very specific recommendations and actions. If we intend to do that, if we were serious about it, I don't see how we can not consider business district and the tax that way. That's it.
Alderman Cummings, then Burghardt.
I know that a lot of business owners downtown weren't in favor of this. My feeling is if this were presented in a different way, that they would be. But this idea didn't come organically. It came sort of top down rather than bottom up. I don't see any business owners here that showed up because of this. But I don't want to assume it's because they don't have interest. I want to give it at least another week. If the business owners in the downtown district came to us and said, we need bathrooms, and we think they're going to cost $400,000, and we're really interested in coming up with some ideas on how to fund that, and the extra cost that it might hit us with is worth getting the bathroom in, we will net, bottom line, come out ahead. I'd be completely supportive of that. One of the worries, I think, that people have, I remember when we got the riverboats in and all the money from gambling, or the lottery, it's even before riverboats. All the money from the lottery was going to go to the schools. And maybe it did, but all the funding that was going to schools went somewhere else, and so the schools netted out with no extra dollars. And I think that perhaps through some misunderstanding, that people see a 25 or 50 basis point, a quarter or a 0.5% increase in taxes coming in extra. And they think, well, that's great, but it's going to get snatched out from my other hand and used for something else. And so I think I can't support this, but it's not so much the idea of it, it's because of how it was developed and that I'm not convinced that the business owners want it. I'm reasonably convinced that if it were presented differently to the business owners, that they would vote and that they would want it, and then I would be 100% behind them on that, behind you on this. But I can't do this. I can't support it right now, not without their support. Thank you.
Alderman Burkhart.
I have a couple easy questions. How does the size of this proposed district compare to 2013? This looks pretty large, this proposed district.
Yes, it is larger. That's one map I didn't bring. I had several maps. That's the one map I didn't bring, but I know this extends to the east side, more so than the former, and also along the riverbank property. So it is a larger district.
And did the former district have a sales tax associated with it?
It did not. There's been some
Kathleen,
change.
could you clarify that response? The business district in existence, the tax was never triggered.
Correct.
So while there was a opportunity to do so, it was never, the trigger was never pulled on it.
If I could explain that a little bit, the law has changed.
Right.
The reason that we had the business district in place was because non-home rule communities, up until a few years ago, weren't able to enter into sales tax rebate agreements unless you had a business district in place, for example. So that allowed you to have a mechanism to enter into agreements with businesses to rebate sales taxes, and the city has. So that's one of the reasons. And there are many other financing methods that we now have the ability as a non-home rule community to do that when that business district was created, the one that's expired, we didn't have. So it wasn't created for a sales tax. It was created to give us the authority to do other things like enter into rebate tax agreements. And if I could, just for clarification, just to follow up on Alderman Cummings, the way that this came about was out of our strategic plan. We were talking about incentives to spur economic development. And so it came from the city council to look into business district as an economic development incentive tool. So that's how this came about.
Alderman Burkhart.
That takes care of me. Thank you.
Alderman Marks.
I was trying to find it, did the consultant gave us a price tag for that type consensus building, right, public meeting?
Yes, remember when I was saying
Yeah, can we do that before we go farther with phase two? I mean, it was a smaller cost, if I remember, it was $2,400. Just to see if we can get that groundswell first, I guess would be my approach, rather than putting out all that money and then find out that there is such opposition to it, that it goes. I think what happened in the last time is people thought that it was a foregone conclusion that tax was going to be imposed, which was not a correct conclusion. But if we have that workshop meeting ahead of time with the business owners, that may make this whole thing slide a little bit easier, where they could then have a voice of saying what's going to happen. I don't know. I would toss that out, though, for it, because I saw there was I think it was $2,300 to $4,600 or something like that. And for me to go forward, I feel a lot comfortable spending that amount of money first to see if we can build that consensus, then to spend the $13,500 to do the plan, and then find out that we got to go back anyways and try to build consensus. I don't know if that would work, or you've done these before, I would assume, in your professional career. I mean,
I think that's definitely an option. It would be like picking up where you left off, that April 2014,
Yeah.
and seeing if you could elicit a different response and a different interactive.
that's the method I would like to see. I mean, I don't know how the council feels on that, but I would prefer to see it go that way first. I mean, it seems like a little bit smaller amount of an investment to really,
I don't even know how formal it would have to be.
I don't know either.
You know, with ex-consultant, no consultant.
I don't know. Again, I'm tossing it out. It's committee, so.
Arrange a meeting and hash it out, and if there are, one or two or three really strong opinions out of the business community that we should address, then we move forward. But otherwise, doing this and coming up with an idea and kind of pushing it down on them, I can't do.
The Economic Development Commission's, one of their charges was to foment this kind of discussion amongst the business leaders.
Yes, and that was going back to the April 2014.
Exactly. Yeah,
So we just want to take the clock back. The feeling I'm getting here is let's start with that meeting before we commit another $13,000. If it means we've got to spend $5,000 to get back to that point before we spend more on a whole study. I mean, at least that's my idea at this point. I don't know how we formalize that or what. I'm seeing a lot of heads nod yes.
do you have a comment on that, Kathleen?
I think that's something we can do, if that's the pleasure of the council. We could go back and try to recast the April 2014 meeting workshop that was intended and that was abbreviated, and actually try to work through it and see what the result is from that. That is a viable option.
Before we consider any amendments, if you will.
That's fine.
That's true, there is no motion, forgive me. But Alderman Bruno, anyone who has not yet spoken? Alderman who wishes to? Alderman Singer, then second time, and Bruno for a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Marks, my consensus is somewhat similar. There's going to be an additional expense which would be incurred here by the city, and my concerns are there are options or proposals here that are available to us, and my concern is which of those options you feel best is suitable for our needs at this point in time. I would ask you to make that consensus or that decision as opposed to myself, because you are more adept and understandable of the area in which you are, of course, being recognized for.
I think it's a matter of how much consensus the council would like to build. If you're looking to have the business community endorse the business district, then there's a lot of work that we would need to do to try to have public education and input and stakeholder meetings and invest in that type of approach. That would be an approach that we could work on, should that be the pleasure. You know, I mean, that's what we do as planners, so if that's how
I
you
would
want
toss
to.
this out there for everyone's consideration, and certainly no disrespect to any organization, but the business community is not necessarily just the members of the chamber.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
vice versa, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Bruno, Simonian, Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In principle, I'm amenable to the lower cost thing, but if it just means recreating the meeting that failed before, if we don't have a way to better inform those participating to intelligently discuss it, because I was at that meeting and a lot of people were arguing against something that wasn't being presented. And my fear would be that spending that lower amount of money would just result in the same ugly meeting. If we did do that, but maybe we could figure out a way to make that work, but without the additional consulting, I know we've bandied about things from our plans in terms of things that could be done. would we have a well-vetted list of potential projects from this lower budget thing? Again, it's the chicken and the egg. If we're all just saying, well, we could do this, we could do this, it's that chicken and egg. I think we, will the consultants say, we've identified these things will give you the biggest bang? I think that would go further toward selling the business community. I don't know if I guess that's not a question. Well, I guess it is a question. Would that consultant bring a more authoritative and well-vetted list of projects?
Yeah, I don't have the benefit of being present at the April meeting, but I know that there was a pretty long list of potential projects that were included in the community survey that was done by our department before that meeting. And part of the expectation at that meeting was to try to prioritize those projects. So I think that there's already a pretty long laundry list of ideas between the comp plan and the downtown master plan and the strategic plan. I don't know if there's a lot of projects that haven't already been introduced. I think it was a matter of prioritizing them and.
Well, maybe we could muscle through with a lower cost. It should be noted too that despite the tenor of that meeting that was cut short, those surveys did result in some positive feedback and legitimate recommendations for projects too. I guess I'd go either way. I'm thinking it's going to be a better sell to the business community if we formalize it more. But maybe we can sharpen our tools and push through with a lower budget version. Thank you.
Alderman Simonian.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I watched that meeting on TV, so it was pretty ugly, no matter how you look at it. But I don't think that, and I don't have an appetite one way or the other. I don't have a problem putting a tax on, not at all. My issue again is what's the money going to be spent for? And I think that's what the core issue is. I totally agree with Alderman Marks that we don't have to spend all this money to get the answer. I personally don't think we have to spend any money to get this answer. I think we can do it ourselves and, invite the business community in here and let the aldermen talk to the business community and explain and find out and work together in figuring out a plan that works for both parties. But Alderman Maladra is absolutely right. We've got a plan. We've got all these needs for the future. They've got to get paid for somehow. And I don't think it was necessarily the message. It was how it was delivered, who it was delivered by. There was contention from the start. I mean, there was, that group was, we are against a tax, period. We don't want to talk about options. We're against the tax, period. So, I mean, it's hard to have a conversation with a group who's already got, the pitchforks and the already out. And so I think we take another stab at this, but we do it in the right message and conversation with the aldermen and the city staff, but trying to work on a plan that makes sense and that they can support. And after that, if they don't support it, they don't support it. Then we have to make a decision. But I still think there's opportunity here, and I still think we can work together. And if we, like I said, if we bundle this correctly, we deliver the message appropriately, and we take their feedback and go from there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Cummings? Radecki?
Yeah, I think a cheap way is better, and I think I would like to see an informal meeting with the business owners within the proposed district and some aldermen. I'd love to attend that. I don't think that at this point we need to bring the consultant in. I think we'll hear, assuming that you can get a good core group of 7 or 8 of the more major businesses in to talk, we'll hear what the needs are and can have a good sense then. I don't even know that it's, worth the 3,000 or 4,000 to, at this point, to bring. Thank you.
Alderman Radecki.
Well, I'm probably in the minority here, but, fast forwarding and looking at how this is all going to unfold is what's being proposed is, number one, somebody said, what is consensus really going to look like when you get this group together? Who says this was successful or not? I have serious doubts that there's going to be a different outcome to this meeting, given the way the first meeting went. My guess is that people are gearing up at this point as they watch this and will come ready, loaded for bear for this meeting. So I don't think it's going to be a prettier meeting, and I don't think we're going to be able to gauge what success is. And Tom, to your question, what happens if they say, no, don't do it? Then what are we going to do? Then are we going to abandon the projects that we have? This is a 1/4% increase. We're already 0.5% lower than both of our neighboring communities. This 1/4% is going to be shouldered by 80% of people that are non-residents within our community. This goes back to 2011. This is when the discussion was started, and it's going to perpetuate and continue to go on and continue to go on. So, I guess the question is, as it was posed earlier, do we have the appetite, yes or no? And I think it's time to say yes or no. And not deflect this to a meeting that I don't think is going to produce a different result, nor do I think that you're going to be able to get the read from that to make an intelligent decision, yea or nay, on the potential to increase this tax by another 1/4%. So I feel like we're kicking the can down the road, a little bit here. So that's just my opinion, is that, we've been asked the question. Let's give them the answer. I don't think I need another meeting to find out what my appetite is. I don't know what's going to be said at that meeting that's really going to change, my opinion. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Maladra.
Can I answer his question?
No.
I
Alderman
was
Maladra.
going to take a stab. So the one thing that is different is the times, right? So in addition to not having our message well thought out and well packaged and presented last time, I think our timing was crap. I mean, it was really a really difficult time for small businesses everywhere. It was a very difficult time for our downtown, and we've been out of that for a while. So maybe now that things have approached a certain equilibrium, perhaps not the equilibrium we had before the recession, but certainly an equilibrium nonetheless, everybody's willing to listen more. And so it's not necessarily, well, it is what we would say as well, because we didn't get an opportunity to say anything last time. So maybe now that we've come out of the storm, people will give us an opportunity to say this is what we intend to do with it. And if we work on coming up with a package, I don't want it to sound like propaganda, but if if this group can't put together like a list of priorities of the 5 or 10 things you would do the first year with a 1/4% sales tax increase, then I don't think you're necessarily earning your salary. I think you know what we would want to do. I think you have a good idea of what would be good for the city and for the businesses. Lay it out there and see what the reaction is. If their reaction is as negative as it was last time, then the council's going to have to make a choice about how do we move the city forward and when. But if the reaction is more open, then all we've lost is a little bit of time trying to get some people on board. Sound good?
Alderman Simonian.
To answer your question, Jim, when you asked me about what happens if they come back and the answer doesn't change. Well, you know what? I look at it we give it another shot, and then, as Alderman Maladra just said, and we come back and we decide at that time, you know, what do we need to do something, or do we just, you know, push it aside for the time being and readdress it somewhere down the road? But I just think, I mean, after seeing that and the small period of time that I was involved in it prior to becoming part of the council, I mean, any good business person knows that you have to make a reinvestment in your business. And part of that reinvestment is in this whole downtown district. And, you know, if you can't get a good business person to understand that, and then turn around and say, okay, the investment needs to be made, let's figure out what those investments are, then, you know, then maybe the decisions have to be made by us. But I would love to give the benefit of the doubt to the business owners and see if they will help guide in those objectives and goals in the future.
Can I ask one? Yeah. Can I throw one question out?
Sure.
For the group. Do you think that there's anybody that's not going to come shop downtown Geneva because we're at 7.75 now rather than 7.50?
No, I don't think this has anything to do personally. I don't think this has anything to do with the number, because the number's not coming out of the business owner's pocket. It's coming from the patron, and I don't think the patron's going to make a different choice. And that's my opinion. But I think it's more of a all of us getting on board and saying, you know, at some point in time, this is going to happen. More than likely than not that it's going to happen, because we are going to have needs to support the downtown. What we'd like to do is go shoulder to shoulder with you and figure it out together, put together a plan, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year plan, earmark what we all agree needs to be done, take those dollars and get it done. But we're all in the same boat. And, you know, some of the opposition may be things that we heard in that meeting, which were, you know, it shouldn't just be the downtown district, it should be the entire, you know, the city supporting this and those kind of things. We'll take all that into consideration and figure out whether it makes sense or not to include it. But at least I think that, to answer your question, no one's not coming here, in my opinion. You know, I'm not going to come here and have a burger and a beer because for 1/4%. I don't think that's it, especially when 78% of the folks, according to this, aren't even Geneva folks to begin with.
So then what other argument would a business owner have for not wanting the 1/4% tax if it wasn't going to drive any business away from them? What would their argument be?
I believe it was just the way it was delivered. It was, you know, that's in my opinion. I just think.
That's why it didn't work, but their arguments.
Mr. Maladra, your microphone needs to be on.
That's why.
Oh, don't interrupt. Mr. Simonian still has the floor.
I yield to my senior alderman.
Well, actually, he's not recognized yet.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I yield back to the mayor.
Cummings. Then Maladra.
The question of, do you think anybody would not come to the downtown district for a 1/4% increase in sales tax revenue? I have 2 emails, I was just going back through my emails, 2 emails from well-known, bright business owners in the downtown district, and both of them said, how do we know where the money's getting spent? Which shows, now maybe I got 100% of the people that don't understand it in those 2 emails. My feeling is that if those 2 feel that way, there are more people that feel that way. And then I get back to the delivery issue. It's not I'm guessing it's not 1/4% or 1/2%. It's the delivery and education of the business owners in this potential downtown business district that was lacking. I believe that if it were presented correctly, that we would have people on board. But just because I believe that, I'm not going to overrun their feeling to not put it in. They do not want it in right now, and I'm not going to run over them roughshod because of that. Thank you.
There is no motion on the floor, so we're having a nice discussion. Alderman Kilburg?
Yeah, I think you quantified the fact that people come to Geneva and buy a diamond ring for $5,000 or $10,000, you're spending $12.50 more for a $5,000 ring than you would have before, $25 if you were going to purchase a $10,000 ring. Well, let's just try to bring it more back to reality where somebody's going to come to Geneva and spend $500 in the course of a Saturday afternoon in our shops. We're talking about $1.25. We're talking about $1.25 if they drop $500 on 3rd Street. It's always the biggest gorilla in the room that's going to be heard, and everybody else is resistant to defend a position that their peers are advocating or emphatic about. I'm just saying, I think, if we really believe that it's important to advance the business district, and if we really believe in economic development here in Geneva, I don't see where this is such a radical departure from our responsibility as elected officials to move forward with it. I would encourage, though, I think that we need to engage the business district, the chamber, and their leadership more one-on-one, and really advocate and try to spell out some specifics and try to change the public sentiment up and down 3rd Street. And, to stand in the way of progress, I see this as progress, we can dance. We talked about this an hour tonight. We're talking about $1.25 per visitor to Geneva. I don't think it's that hard a decision. I think, we're elected officials. There are people who are going to disagree with us. And there are people, we can put a lot of energy and time and effort into it, and they're still going to disagree with us. But if we feel it's the right thing, then we should do it. And if we don't feel it's the right thing, then yeah, let's step back and let's move on to something else that's important. But I feel this is important. There's a lot of things that we can get accomplished with it. Let's make the decision and move forward.
From the dais, anyone else? From the audience? Mr. Smirsich. Again, just for the benefit of the council or committee, there is no motion on the floor yet, so we're, Mr. Smirsich, help me.
Marty Smirsich, 909 South Batavia Avenue. I'm struck that there's nobody from the chamber here, or there isn't anybody from the business community here. So the questions you're asking are being answered by a circular group without the input tonight, at least, from the business community. And I agree, 25 cents isn't much, and I can't imagine that anybody's not going to come to the city for 25 cents. I mean, it's silly. But, Mr. Cummings, I think you got a great idea. You got two people that have expressed their views to you. If I had the opportunity, I'd get those two people and see if they would take some responsibility for bringing a group of their peers together to come back to you with something positive. And if that fails, then go ahead and use your home rule kind of decision-making and do what you think is right. But before you do it, give the stakeholders, the people that are invested in downtown, a opportunity to get it going. And don't repeat a bad meeting. I mean, just don't give this kind of a presentation over again, because you'll get exactly the same results. If you were to call, and I can think of a couple of names that you're all thinking of, if you could get them together, and not with 8 or 9, I'd start with 1 or 2 and find yourself a leader that's going to bring 8 or 9 to the next meeting, that's going to bring another 20 or 30 or 40 or 600 or whatever it takes to get it done. But I do a little community organizing before you just throw this whole thing under the bus. And as you say, do what you have to do, but don't do it at the expense of your relationship with your downtown community. They've done a hell of a lot for the city, and they need to be respected. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Anyone from the dais willing to fashion a motion and/or not? If you'd like to, we can certainly table the matter, we can offer a motion to head in a different direction.
I'll take a shot at it.
Yeah, we're looking for ultimately his direction, so.
I would like to make a motion that we work to get representatives of the downtown business district in a meeting to present the concept, benefits, features of increasing a tax, getting their input, and then reconvening as a city council to discuss next steps.
Before there's a second, a clarifying question for you. Would the work be done via the council members who represent the downtown? Would it be a public meeting? Would it be a private meeting? Because if any more than 3 of us attend, it's
No,
a
I
public
think
meeting.
I think it should be a public meeting. I think all city council members should be
At least
invited, not required. And we communicate through whatever, email, mail, whatever means, face-to-face, to set a date and have that public meeting.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question as well. With respect to a presentation, would that fall upon the shoulders of Kathleen and her team? Would it be just a roundtable discussion? We can certainly bring the comprehensive plan, the downtown master plan, and other documents saying, here's what our planning thoughts are. All of you participated accordingly.
I
How do you
think,
anticipate facilitating?
I think personally, the city council should make the presentation.
Could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
If you're amenable to this, to table the matter and ask staff to bring back a proposal to conduct the meeting and, all these questions, we're kind of legislating this or making this meeting on the fly here. Would it make more sense to have them? I mean, I think they've got the will of the majority of the council, they've heard that, to propose, hey, we heard what you said, this is what we'll bring back. Rather than try to answer, it's not fair for you to try to answer all these questions on the.
I would entertain that direction if it was put into a motion, that the motion include direct professional staff to return to the council with a more regulated format for this public meeting involving
Okay.
both
I would
business,
vote for that.
district, community.
I can agree to that.
Whatever the heck I just said, is there a second?
Yeah, I agree with whatever the heck you just said.
Okay. There's no date certain. Yes,
Yeah,
Mr. Cook.
second.
Just for clarification, I still don't know who you want to make the presentation.
That's to be determined
I
yet,
think that's to be
based on
determined.
feedback from Kathleen and her team. She might very well recommend, you know what, downtown council members, you guys make the presentation.
But I know from talking to Kathleen, that's why we came to you, is we were asking about bringing the consultant back and doing that work.
I think the
So-
problem here, Mary, quite honestly, is government, taxes, staff, consultants, and I think there's just I think personally, there's just there's a negativity there with all those scenarios. I just think that we're going to get a little further. I don't have a problem with staff teeing it up, but I think the city council has to play some role in showing their support of this and strong support in this, in wanting to hear seriously from these folks. So however that is communicated, I think that needs to get communicated that way. Because I think those are the hurdles.
I guess that's my question. That's what we're looking to you for, is to tell us, whom do you want to make that presentation?
Staff can,
You want staff, not the council?
no, staff, I mean, I think staff can start off with the,
Okay.
with the big picture, and I think that it behooves us to get involved somehow. How that is, I don't know yet, but I think somehow to get involved for a couple of reasons.
So I'll go to the road diet meeting, right? So we had the engineers explain everything that we intended to do.
Right.
But then you were there to, verbally express support, why it's a good idea, how it fit into all of our separate plans, et cetera, can run the same sort of way.
I mean, you saw the road diet, you and I and the mayor
Right.
with the citizens. I mean, it
Right.
is there's something to be said when we had a point of conflict that we have a responsibility to get involved.
Right.
And to support what the city, our plan and everything else. I mean, it's time for us to either support the plan and get their input, but we have to be behind us at this time.
Yeah.
I mean.
So does that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
A motion, seconded by Alderman Cummings. Is everyone clear?
Very clear on
Mrs.
the
Wheeler?
fuzzy concept.
Can you clarify this for us?
She did a very good job.
Madam Recording Secretary, please take the roll.
Mike Bruno?
Aye.
Tara Burkhart?
Aye.
Donald Cummings?
Aye.
Dean Kilburg?
Aye.
Craig Maladra?
Aye.
Richard Marks?
Aye.
Jim Radecki?
Nay.
Tom Simonian?
Aye.
Mary Sino?
Aye.
Ron Singer?
Aye.
Motion passes with 9 affirmative votes, 1 nay vote, no absentees or recusals. Very good. Unfinished business, ladies and gentlemen, item 6A, to continue the July 13, 2015 discussion considering draft ordinance related to city-initiated text amendments to the Geneva Historic Preservation Ordinance regarding formatting, procedural, and regulatory changes to Title III, Chapter 3, and Title 10, Chapter 6 of the Geneva City Code. There's no need to motion or anything else. This is a continuation of the discussion. Mr. Lambert is with us this evening to bring us up to speed, as it were. Welcome. Just as a point of clarification, we traditionally adjourn meetings at 10 o'clock. So in a couple minutes to, I will ask the committee if they still wish to do so or continue. So, thank you, Michael.
And this is not a 35-minute presentation.
Yes. Holy moly.
Try to hold it down.
Good evening, Mayor and Aldermen. Tonight, I will be presenting a brief introduction to those portions of the proposed draft ordinance, for the Historic Preservation Ordinance, that to date have not yet been discussed by this council. As a matter of review, the City Council has provided direction to staff regarding 3 major topics included in the draft Historic Preservation Ordinance document. First, the concept of neighborhood conservation districts was set aside at the June 1st, 2015 Committee of the Whole meeting. Secondly, owner consent for landmark designation was thoroughly discussed and direction was provided at the June 15th, 2015 Committee of the Whole meeting. Thirdly, direction was provided to follow Illinois zoning law regarding owner objection to historic district designation at the July 13th, 2015 Committee of the Whole meeting. The remaining key changes that have not yet been vetted by this council are demolition of designated properties and economic hardship. No process for the demolition of designated properties exists today in the existing Historic Preservation Ordinance. However, the Community Development Department, through its Historic Preservation and Building Divisions, has for many years adopted a review process for the demolition of designated properties that requires review by the Historic Preservation Commission. The established review process is similar to any other permit-based construction activity within the historic district. However, the SOI standards, which were drafted to preserve historic properties, do not provide a workable framework for the review of demolition of designated properties. Therefore, the draft language of our proposed Historic Preservation Ordinance establishes standards for demolition review, defines what constitutes demolition, demolition by neglect, and demolition by natural destruction. The existing ordinance is not clear about several key steps when an applicant makes a demolition request. The proposed draft requires a pre-application meeting between the applicant and staff to outline the process and to identify any potential areas of concern of either the applicant and/or staff. Importantly, the demolition procedure as proposed will require a public hearing to gather all pertinent facts of a request for properties designated as either significant or contributing. No public hearing is required for non-contributing properties. The public hearing process mirrors the process to designate a property as an individual historic landmark or as part of a historic district. A clearly defined option to request a delay of demolition process is outlined so that all interested parties may investigate alternatives to demolition when deemed appropriate. A request for delay may only be granted under 3 specific conditions in the proposed ordinance. Once application for a demolition permit is made, all work on the property is suspended until a determination about the request is completed. The proposed additional 4 standards for review of a demolition request, these are in addition to the SOI standards, include that the property constitutes a hazard to its occupants or the general public, the property is a deterrent to a major improvement project with a substantial benefit to the community for which all approvals and financing have been granted, the retention of the property will cause an undue economic hardship on the applicant when events beyond the applicant's control cause the hardship, and the retention of the historic property is not in the best interest of the majority of the community. As a case in point, the existing historic preservation ordinance offered the Historic Preservation Commission only a single standard on which to base their assessment of the recent demolition request for 6th Street School. Based on that single standard, which states the historic character of a property shall be preserved, it's the only SOI standard that applies to demolition, combined with the facts presented by the applicant at the HPC meeting, resulted in the Commission's determination. The addition of these 4 standards provides the Commission with a broader authority to evaluate requests for demolition where merited. The last topic that has not yet been discussed in the proposed draft historic preservation ordinance is economic hardship. Economic hardship is not to be confused with economic feasibility. Economic feasibility is a measure of a reasonable economic return on the investment proposed at a specific property. Economic hardship, on the other hand, is a method of relief for a financially distressed property owner caused by strict compliance with the SOI standards. Although the Historic Preservation Commission has a well-established record of working towards preservation solutions within an applicant's financial means, the existing ordinance currently in use contains no provision for economic relief from the SOI standards. The proposed ordinance text very closely follows the requirements laid out by the courts and case law. Similar to other procedures of the draft ordinance, economic hardship relief requires a pre-application meeting, a prescribed schedule, and a public hearing. At the public hearing, the applicant is required to submit evidence supporting specific standards for relief due to economic hardship. To be granted relief by the HPC, an applicant must provide evidence of one or more of the following 4 standards for review for economic hardship, resulting from compliance with the SOI standards. The fair market value of a property is substantially decreased as a result of a denial of proposed work. A substantial decrease in financial return to the property owners as a result of denial of proposed work. A substantial and significant additional cost would be incurred by the property owners, and economically feasible rehabilitation or adaptive use of a property is not possible. This concludes staff's brief presentation of the outstanding discussion topics this evening. David and I are present to provide additional clarification that City Councils may be requested. We hope to receive sufficient feedback on these items so that we may begin the process of completing an updated draft historic preservation ordinance for final review by this council. Thank you. We are here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. I was just trying to find the right words. Let me ask the committee this. If you would like additional time to consider these 3 issues, we can certainly return to a future COW. If you'd like to dive in now with the 30 minutes or more we have remaining, that's up to you. Of course, the same invitation goes to our guests who are with us tonight as well. The purpose of this evening is, of course, to dive into these three issues, not to relitigate the previous issues, so that we continue to advance this matter for ultimately a final and formal document. From the dais, then Mr. Smirsich. Anyone opposed to continuing? Do you want to, Mr. Simonian?
I'm sorry, is the question about continuing, or?
Yeah, do you want to dive in tonight with whatever time we have? And
I would prefer, I mean, I got a couple of questions.
Okay, great.
But I don't know that we,
I'll strongly object to continuing this evening. Okay, Mr. Smirsich?
This issue has been at the bottom of the agenda at every meeting that I've attended at Cal when it's been on the agenda. And I would suggest that you have a special meeting of Cal and only cover this topic so that we can get some progress made. To end up at, what is it, 9:45 or 9:35 with these important issues on the agenda is not doing it justice. So is there a precedent for having a special meeting at Cal to cover one subject?
Not at all. It's also worth noting that every issue is important depending on the constituency. So while we can certainly hold special committee of the whole meetings for one issue only, regrettably, the volume of business that this community sees doesn't give us that luxury.
Well, then put us on first. We're on the bottom of the list every time, so we're.
Don't accept that as some sort of diss, because it's not that at all.
I'm
So
not suggesting
I don't
that
think
at
anyone
all.
here
I think-
anticipated an hour-plus discussion on the business district. I don't think anyone anticipated substantial discussion on other items as well.
I'm not disagreeing with that
I
at
know.
all. It is a fact we've been at the bottom of the list and that we have ended up in this position a number of times, and all the other issues discussed have been important. There's no question about that.
Right.
And I'm not suggesting that they're not in any way, and you should understand that.
Oh, I do. I
I'm
understand it
suggesting-
explicitly. So,
My suggestion simply was to have a meeting of the COW to cover historic preservation so that you can cover it in detail for the full agenda. Is that not possible?
that will be considered.
That's what my question was.
We will continue. Questions from the dais regarding the items. Alderman Simonian.
thank you, Mayor. Michael, can you walk me through a sample of what you're thinking on the demolition process? Let's just take for instance, there's a property that has submitted a permit for demolition. HPC thinks this is a property that is worth reviewing. Is that how it begins?
Sure. If it was a significant or contributing property according to our survey, then it would, then we would have a pre-application meeting with the applicant seeking to get a demolition permit, and we would walk them through the steps of what would be required. We'd talk to them about what they need to submit, what they need to provide at the public hearing. This happened actually at the Sixth Street School project. We met with the county, had basically a pre-application meeting with them, talk them through the process of what would happen and what the submittals would have to be made to both the city and also to the Illinois Historic Preservation Agency. That pre-application meeting would then lead to schedule, once the application was complete, providing they wanted to move forward, then it would be scheduled for a public hearing with the notice, and I'm trying to pull that up there. So once the application was submitted, it would, like I said, it would be scheduled for a public hearing. We do require a certain list of submittals, as we've done throughout the whole ordinance. Right now, the submittal list is kind of vague in our current ordinance. We've tried to lay out the minimum information we'd request so that we can do provide a complete review of the application. There would probably be a fee for this, but again, as we've said before, we're not saying the fees is the Historic Preservation Commission. That would be done by ordinance by the council. So there would be a fee associated with the filing because of the public hearing requirement. Once the application is filed, there would be notice that would be, again, sent out to an area 350 feet from the proposed demolition site. And then within, just want to make sure I have this right. not less than 15, but no more than 30 days from the time the application was filed complete. There would be a public hearing, so it's within that 30-day timeframe we've tried to keep throughout the ordinance. The public hearing would be held at the Historic Preservation Commission, so the public could be heard, the applicant would be heard, the commissioners would be heard on the process, on the proposal. The commission would then, as we do with all of our cases, they would make an analysis based on the standards, so not only the one standard we've had to work with in the past, but these 4 additional standards. So we now have 5 standards that we could test the demolition against. And then at the close of the public hearing, the commission would take action and make a recommendation for either approval or denial of a demolition. If it was an approval, the building permit would be issued for the demolition. If it was a denial, the applicant would have the right to bring it back to the city council for an appeal, and again, just like any of our other cases, and then the city council could then make a determination based on the information presented by both the commission and the applicant at that time.
2 questions.
Yes.
One is, do you feel comfortable this is a good process of last resort for the city to protect that slip through the crack?
Well, this is not
Property.
to be confused with when we talk about tool of last resort, when we're talking under owner consent and trying to save that unprotected property. This demolition process only applies to properties that have already been designated as significant or contributing as either an individual landmark within a district. So this is not to be confused with a tool of last resort.
Oh, so this doesn't satisfy
No.
that?
No. This would be strictly someone coming who has a property that's designated who would like to demolish it for some purpose.
Okay. So this doesn't address the demolition of a property that is not currently landmarked or in a historic district?
No.
Okay. And lastly, timeframe-wise, from the time that process begins to the time it gets to the city council, approximately how long?
From the time a completed application is made, it should happen within 60 days.
60 days. Okay, thank you.
Now, just again, there is the option, when you read through the ordinance, there is an option for what would I call it, this hour, I'm drawing a blank at this hour, but where we can ask for a delay so there can be investigation of all terms. That cannot last more than 120 days. But again, there's stipulations what can trigger that. So there have to be 3 specific standards met for the commission to ask for that stay of demolition.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Marks, Alderman Bruno?
I guess one question. Demolition of designated properties, if I remember right, it had to be, demolition was considered 25% of the property, is that correct?
Yes.
So if somebody has a detached garage and the house is landmarked, they would have to probably go through these steps to demolish just the garage to rebuild it, or how would that work?
It's actually described as 25% of the, either the street-facing facade or 25% of the structure. So if the garage is large enough, it could trigger it. But that's also requiring that the garage is identified as either significant or contributing.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Alderman Bruno?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Becky, then Cummings.
So this revised ordinance then gives the commission some opportunities to approve non-compliance with the SOI standards due to economic hardship. Whereas, would that be a fair assessment? It gives them some guideline as to how they can not require certain work be done.
Yes, within a realm. Again, the SY standards are working towards preservation of historic character. If there was a property owner who had some kind of financial setback or what have you, and say there's a code violation, they're being required to repair a failing porch or what have you. It would give the commission some more options and some more leniency as to how to stabilize that property. Maybe it's not a complete restoration of turned porch posts that would be very expensive. Maybe there's a temporary solution that would not destroy the historic character of the building any further, but would not necessarily go to the full extent of what the SOI standards would ask for. So it's, again, providing some flexibility to the commission, which, again, the commission's already doing that to some extent. They just don't have any basis in the current ordinance to support the way that they have worked with some of the.
Yeah, that's been my experience with the commission too, is I know, it's often, hardship and, whether it's economic hardship or economic feasibility. I know that's always given thought, but it's, I think this helps by giving more of a formal framework. And only because not knowing whether this will be continued or not, and I know we're not relitigating anything, but I wanted to verify. So this is an option of last resort in terms of protecting historic properties. We don't have an option of last resort presently in this ordinance.
There's nothing, based on the direction we've had, there's nothing in here now. Again, we've been given a lot of ideas that we'll go back and look as I try to put some of this together, but right now I've not come up with a last resort tool that has been discussed previously.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Thank you. I just have a question, Michael, for clarification. Not every structure in the historic district would be reviewed by the HPC for demolition, correct? If it were not considered by our survey contributing or significant and it were not landmarked.
That's correct, and that's the process that occurs now. We have, as part of our review process, we have what we call the building permit review table, and most non-contributing properties are reviewed administratively, not even in front of the HPC.
Okay, so just because it's in the historic district doesn't mean that it would go before HPC?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. It has to be landmarked or by our survey contributing or significant?
Correct.
Thank you.
Alderman Radecki, then Alderman Singer.
Thank you. I've heard some numbers before about HPC or maybe not, properties that were demolished already within the historic district or approved, and it was like 16, something like that. Is that correct?
I think the number is actually jumping to about 19. As you may be aware, the survey is being updated right now, and it looks like it's about 19 properties, I think.
Would those properties be described as contributing or significant or landmarked? Were those 19 of that type?
Yes, they were 19 of significant or contributing, not of non-contributing. That does not include non-contributing properties.
So you've demolished we have demolished 19 of those, okay? And those were based upon one standard that HPC could apply at that time. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So now you're suggesting 5 standards be considered by the HPC with this draft?
Correct.
In your opinion, how many of those 19 would not have been recommended for demolition had these 5 standards been applied to them?
I haven't gone back and looked at all those cases to really know what was all involved with them. The issue is, and again, there's quite a large discussion going on in the preservation community about the SOI standards. The SOI standards were developed to preserve buildings, and what the general field is doing is making sure that we also have some standards for the demolition of buildings as well. And so this is not, I'm not saying those 19 would or would not have been demolished. It's just that it really kind of hog-ties the HPC in making a recommendation, because the only one of those standards they can look at is whether the building still can be preserved or not. And so there are other things we look at, but our findings of fact are based on the SOI standards, so we're trying to introduce other standards that can be used to evaluate projects as they come forward. I think probably all 19, from looking at them cursorily, probably would have all been approved with these other 4. These other 4 are not making it harder to demolish. They're just giving options to the HPC to have another finding of fact that they can base it on besides just that the building could still be preserved. That seems to have been a concern of what I've heard here at the council, but also in looking at some of the other cases, that the HPC was just looking whether the building could be preserved or not. This would give the HPC the ability to discern other factors in a proposed demolition.
Well, I know this discussion's probably going to be continued to another day, and I guess there's just thank you for that. The SOI standards, sometimes it appears as though we like to adopt them, then sometimes we like to abandon, and then sometimes we like bits and pieces, sometimes we like to, and maybe that's the right thing to do, but it seems as though we get a little bit kind of all over the map with how we're adopting some of the recommendations that are going into the draft. It gets a little bit confusing, and sometimes I wonder if it wouldn't be best just to adopt a certain set of standards. But I guess you're telling me that the SOI standards were deficient then when it came to, in your opinion, to demolition.
Well, they're not deficient. There's actually, the man who wrote them has just written several very interesting articles about them, what they were intended to be. And they were intended to be very general descriptions about how to preserve buildings. And what's happened in city councils and legislative bodies across the country is they're trying to take these 10 SOI standards and make them very prescriptive, and they've tried to make them tighter and tighter and tighter where they were written to be very broad. And so, again, we're not the only community struggling with this, and I'm part of a listserv that get information daily from dozens of other communities. And the practice of historic preservation is finding that there should probably be demolition standards. We can certainly judge how a building should be preserved by the SOI standards, but there's other things that happen in the preservation community that we don't really have set standards for. So what has been proposed here is really following more of the state of the art of the direction preservation is moving across the country, with providing other standards and other options besides the SOI standards.
Thank you.
Alderman Singer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does the city have the authority to demolish the designated property?
Does the city?
Yes.
At this point, if an application was made for a demolition and it was appealed to the city council could, yes.
If there is an objection to that by the property owner, it would necessitate possibly having to go into the court system to have the court agree and allow that demolition, I suspect.
If the city was attempting to demolish a property against an owner's wishes?
Yeah, it was challenged by the owner.
That would be beyond the Historic Preservation Code. I'm guessing that's going to be a property maintenance issue or something else, and there's a process for that in the courts. But but that would be separate of historic preservation.
Even if it was a designated property?
It was a designated property, and there was some concern on the city council's part that this was causing some kind of a danger to the general welfare of the public or the occupants, and the owner wasn't applying for the permit, then I'm assuming, I don't deal with that part, but that would be building or property maintenance code issues, I would think.
Into eminent domain.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
From the dais, just a reminder, folks, in approximately, we still have a special council meeting to approve liquor license applications, but we'll continue for another 5 minutes till they make the announcement. The 5 minutes remain, and we'll take the temperature of the council as to whether or not to continue. Anyone else on the dais? Questions or comments from Mr. Lambert? From the audience? David?
If there are no other comments from the audience or from the alderman, I guess what we're seeking tonight is any other concerns that you may have. If you do have other concerns, if you don't want to discuss them tonight, if you want to email them to us, we're eager to get started on the redraft to bring back for your consideration, but we want to make sure we understand that all of your concerns before we do that, because if we amend one section, we have to amend 12 others, and it's a lot of moving pieces. So if if you have other comments, I don't know if we want to give it a week or something to see if you have other concerns, you want to email us or.
Alderman Maladra?
Well, this is where it gets tricky at 10 to 10, and our desire to not rehash old ground. If I have a concern about something we've done, and I would like to put it out there, is now the time to do it, or?
I think we should.
Well, right now, we're talking about these three elements.
No, he says other issues.
Yeah, we'll bring those all back in the refined and redrafted ordinance, and then, once that's submitted, it's all back on the table.
Oh, okay, cool.
I do have one area.
I'm sorry, you are?
It's that late, huh? You know, we played with underneath the one area, who the applicant can be, but underneath the historic landmark designation, I think at one point, we were going to change the wording for the districts to be that the council would look at that first, just not have the HPC start that process, if I remember correctly. We were going to codify it, that it was really going to come to the council to move that process forward. Underneath the historic landmark designation, are we going to make that application process also mirror that other one? Because underneath here, it just says, any resident, property owner, group of residents, or association with resident members, or the Historic Preservation Commission on its own initiative.
I think the discussion, as I recall, was that if it's an application that's initiated by staff or the HPC, the first step would be to come to the
Okay,
city
so-
council for authorization to proceed with that application.
So that's going to be changed throughout the whole?
Right.
Okay, fine. That was my question. Thank you.
Simone and then Bruno.
Thank you, Mayor. Michael, David, on the demolition delay as a tool of last resort, is that not an option, or is that just something that you don't feel comfortable we can use, or?
I think for properties that are not protected.
Right.
It could be if we weren't requiring owner consent for demolition, but if we're going to require the owner consent or for designation, the delay is really to evaluate the property to determine whether it should be protected or not.
Gotcha.
So if you're going to go against the owner's wishes, then the delay, I guess, really is just kind of delaying.
Okay.
Delay.
That is one thing that I plan to look into more. I've already thrown the question out to some of my colleagues to see how other places are dealing with that, but I'm not getting a lot of real strong suggestions back yet, but I'm still fishing out there.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Bruno?
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we table this discussion for the HP ordinance until our next regularly scheduled CAL meeting of September 7th. No.
It'd be actually
September 8th is the next.
Oh,
So it would be the week following.
September 15th.
For the 14th.
oh, well, maybe special
The next regular
Special
scheduled
CAL?
committee of the whole meeting? We have a special committee of the whole meeting next Monday night. It's a committee of the whole meeting with our friends at the Strategic Plan Advisory Committee. So the next regularly scheduled committee of the whole meeting would not be until the week after Labor Day.
What would be 2 weeks then? That would be,
We have a fifth Monday, so it's actually
So it's three.
oh,
So
okay.
the 14th.
Okay, well, I thought it would give staff 2 weeks to,
it'll be the 14th then, September 14th.
2 weeks to redraft?
or just,
Just to field questions and other concerns?
To put it back on the CAL for continued discussion.
yeah, I mean, we obviously are,
So this will
We're
be a
gonna be-
continuation again of the business. We'll bring it back to the CAL meeting on the 14th of September. That's a motion. Is there a second?
Point of order.
Seconded.
Seconded, no discussions on the motion. Ron, do you want to,
I would like to ask you, sir, will other outstanding issues be discussed at that point in time?
yes. These
Very
three
good.
items will be on the 9:14 agenda item.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, but not all the other ones, just these three.
Oh, just these?
Correct. And then, once the document is redrafted and represented, everything's back on the table.
Oh, okay.
oh, I was thinking it was going to be the whole thing.
Motion and a second. All in favor of tabling to the 14th, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Nay.
9-1. On to the city council meeting, if there's no objection. We first need to adjourn the committee of the whole.
Motion to adjourn.
All in fa- Yes, sir?
Procedural question, and I'm not sure I understood correctly. I thought I heard a request from staff for council members to send them concerns other than what was on the screen so they could get on with the rewriting of the code. And there are some key issues that need to be discussed by Cal before the rewrite is done.
Oh, no question. And that's what the meeting for the September 14th is about?
Okay, so other issues other than the three that were presented tonight?
No, other issues will be considered once the redraft is presented. If there are other issues, any council member can say to David or Michael, well, I have a question regarding this, but we're not going to be discussing it in a public format until the entire document's rewritten based on all the commentary provided, so we can see how they interconnect, if you will. At that point, every issue can be brought back up.
Well, there's some key issues that haven't been discussed that I think to take the staff's time of rewriting it and having the same issues come back up, it doesn't make much sense. I can give you an example. And there's some serious things that should be considered.
Why don't we talk offline? I'll be happy to relay those accordingly, but just considering the hour being late, so.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Simonian. Say, if you agree with those two gentlemen, aye?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Special city council meeting is called to order. Let the record show that all the aldermen are present. We have one item of business tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, two, forgive me. Recommend approval of special event application for Fox Valley Folk Festival, September 6 and 7, 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Bruno, seconded by Marks. Questions or comments? A voice vote is sufficient. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Item 2 is to recommend approval of Festival of the Vine special event liquor licenses for Fiora's Restaurant, Chianti's Restaurant, The Little Traveler, and Geneva Wine Cellars, September 11th to the 13th, 2015.
So moved.
Motion by Simonian, seconded by Marks. Questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'll entertain a motion to waive the
So-
fees.
So moved.
Motion by Simonian,
Second.
seconded by Marks. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
New business? None?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Simonian makes the... Okay.
Oh, I'm
fire
sorry.
away.
I apologize.
Well, I just want to congratulate the mayor on becoming a grandfather this weekend. We got a granddaughter born, Micah, Emma. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
She's texting me right now saying, I need college paid for. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. And Jim's a grandfather, as we all know, too, about, what, 2 weeks ago? Carson Quinn Christopher. A little
I
bigger, a little
celebrated
bigger
my-
than Micah.
I celebrated my 57th wedding anniversary last week.
You should be congratulating your wife. not
Yeah,
you.
really.
God bless that woman.
Did anybody celebrate with you?
Yeah.
That's what Match.com's for, Colin. Okay, motion to adjourn. All say aye.
I apologize for my
Aye.
premature motion to adjourn, unaware of all this unbelievable new business. So I apologize.
Please, I just wanted to wish the mayor a happy birthday on Wednesday.
Oh, birthday.
Thanks for nothing, McKittrick. Simonian, you want to make the down motion to adjourn?
Yes, now I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Cameras are off.